You start.
Hi everyone, welcome to Coats and Jackets, and we're back for the Wizarding World Book Club. This is Kimberly.
And this is Mandy.
This is probably going to be our bit from now on.
Ta-da!
So we're going to start with the Twitter discussions.
Yes. The first question was, is the Wizarding World as secretive / hidden as it likes to believe that it is?
And that was a really great question for last week's discussion. And we sort of alluded to that a little in different ways, but we didn't talk about it in depth.
No.
And we talked about like how things like to camouflage themselves as Muggle items and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. I really enjoy like the beginning of the book where you're really just following Vernon to work.
Yeah, it's his mundane, everyday
His
routine.
mundane. You know, he sees the cat reading the newspaper, and then it's just sort of like, did I just see a cat reading?
Can't read a newspaper.
The cat can't read a newspaper.
That cat isn't looking at me.
He's not possible. She's, you know, that cat's not possibly reading that street sign. So I think that it does a fairly good job of hiding itself, only because Muggles don't want to believe in magic. Well,
and that's a
most
really
of us.
huge point. They really don't. And the world is set up in such a way that if people do discover magic and talk about it, they'll be labeled as crazy.
Well.
So the thing is, if they do know about it, they don't want to talk about it. And if they do know about it because their child is a witch or wizard, they're not going to want to expose them.
No, well, because the last thing you want is, and we talked about this before we started filming, would be like a Salem witch trial. People are going to be afraid of power.
And they're going to be afraid that wizards could use that power at any time. There's killing curses. There's memory curses. They could alter the way you think or feel about things, and that would be a huge frightening thing to people.
Well, I mean, if the Muggle world knew at all about Voldemort, you know, evil wizards, it would be, you know, the whole wizarding community would be at risk.
They would be suspicious of everyday minor infractions that wizards might commit. Once they knew that there actually were evil wizards and that was confirmed, they would want to stamp the whole thing out.
Not getting too far into politics, but you know, that's the way Muggles and humans seem to react historically.
And there's actually some confirmation in that, which is kind of cool. And it's in the original text for Fantastic Beasts. There's a passage in here, and I'm going to have all the information come up on the screen along with the passage. But there's a passage in here that actually refers to being stoned or like being drowned in a duck pond and not wanting that kind of stuff to happen to themselves or other Muggles. So it alludes in here to the Salem witch trials and to the different things that were done to try to discover a witch in medieval times.
Now, I haven't read Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. I do have a copy of it that arrived this week. And so it's on my list, so I'm excited to read that and kind of get a little bit more into the history outside of Harry Potter, but in the Harry Potter world. Okay. So the next question is, why do you think the Dursleys are so afraid of magic? Well, Petunia. Good old Petunia.
Well, she's afraid of it because she saw it firsthand.
Well, for sure. I mean, her sister's a wizard.
Her sister's a Muggle-born wizard.
Technically a witch.
Yeah. She's Muggle-born, though.
But Muggle-born. So there's, I think, some fear there that she... Or, you know what, I don't even think fear. I think it could have started out as jealousy. Yeah.
And grew into fear. Yeah. Definitely.
You know, why is her sister chosen to have this great gift and then she's not?
And all this power and not her.
All this power and not her, and then...
And she even says that.
For
she
sure.
says that her parents were so excited, oh, we have a witch in the family.
And I just think that that's such a letdown to have... one of your sibling, you know, there's two siblings and you have a sibling and one of them is given this great ability, and then the other is just sort of left on the wayside. And I think I don't know, I feel bad for Petunia. I don't really
I do to a certain extent.
I mean, she's a horrible person, but I feel bad for her.
You do to a certain extent, because you know that has to be hard, and sibling rivalries are a huge thing.
I have a brother. There's rivalry.
But that's something you learn to cope with, whereas Petunia never really learned to cope with it, and she just always resented it. And like we said, all that resentment and jealousy just grew into fear, and she started labeling it as weird and not normal. And
if she can't have that, she wants it completely out of her life. She wants to 100% be normal, and she wants her life to be normal. Because I feel it could be a little painful every day to even be reminded of that, you know, and so she's completely shut it out of her life.
And she shut out her sister and completely out of her life, to the point where she convinced Vernon that it was also bad, and it was bad not to be normal. And part of that is why she overindulges her own son, because her son is a normal boy, and she... Yeah. And she super overindulges him and gives him everything he's ever wanted, because she never got that power. She feels like she never got what she wanted as a kid. And I kind of feel like that's part of that.
You're getting deep. Getting right into that psychology. And no, I agree. I think, but it's not only that. I almost feel as well, too, that if she keeps Dudley distracted in his normal life, then there's no risk. You have to wonder if she thinks that part of the reason why her sister became a witch was, you know, a natural born curiosity towards it. And then they get Harry, and they are she's terrified.
They're both absolutely terrified of him.
That Dudley might pick up some bad habits,
so they keep them separate as much as possible. And it's not just because, like you said, they're afraid of Harry. It's also because they're afraid Dudley will learn about magic and maybe somehow pick it up. They don't really know a lot about how it works.
Well, and as we know, young witches and wizards don't have a lot of control over their powers. I mean, for sure, before this book occurred, there were instances, I'm sure, where there was some magic that occurred that Harry might not have even been aware of that he was the case, or even aware of, for example, the snake in the
I was going to bring that exact one up. And how do they explain that away? The glass disappears, the snake comes out, Dudley falls in, the glass reappears. How do they explain how Dudley got in and the snake got out? The zoo just apologizes, and they don't know how it happened.
And for sure, it was a mistake on Harry's part. You know,
he didn't know that was going to happen.
He didn't know it was going to happen. He didn't know he was a wizard. His family has no way of knowing, really, that he didn't do it on purpose.
Right.
You know, so I can understand the fear. It's the unknown. They never really bothered to educate themselves, and I think educating yourself on something is the best way to not be afraid of it. Unless you're afraid of heights, then you're totally valid. Ferris wheels are terrifying.
I'm with you on that one. Yeah, heights are the devil.
So no matter how much I read about them and jumping out of planes, I'm never going to do it. But I feel like they have never taken the opportunity to read about it. But then again, where would they read about it? There's a total, blackout.
Well, there would have been access to it while she was younger, because wizarding households are supposed to have certain books. Once they learned what she was, they would have gotten the books, they would have started educating themselves and making sure they had everything for their daughter to attend school. They obviously embraced the idea of it, her being Muggle-born. It would be interesting to know if there were any other Muggle-born witches or wizards in their family previous to that.
Would be interesting to know. I mean, and part of me is kind of like, well, why didn't, Dumbledore, provide some sort of literature?
But he did. He gave them a letter.
He gave them a letter. But, I mean, I think the other thing is, too, he was just trying to hide Harry.
In the
most ordinary Muggle home that he could think of.
And it was with family, which, as we learn at the end of the book, is very important.
So, I mean, there is that, and I think there's more speculation to come about the Dursleys, but it's going to be well into the 7th book before we get there. But I can understand why they're afraid of magic, for sure. Because they just don't know enough about it.
And that's also why they're so preoccupied with trying to pretend they're normal and everything's normal and perfect about their lives. Because they don't want anyone to know that Harry is the way he is.
No, for sure not. I mean,
and they also don't want to attract more of it.
There's a lack of... Sometimes people like to hide things, try to ignore that they're not there in a way of sort of trying to deal with them. I don't think it works.
It's a terrible coping mechanism.
It's a terrible coping mechanism. But it seems to be what the Dursleys like to do. The next one...
The final Twitter question is going to actually be our next theme. So we'll kick off the theme with that. The theme for this week was first impressions.
I want to start off with like I guess a first impression overall of the book, for one thing.
Sure.
I mean, at the very beginning of the book, you're introduced to the Dursleys, who are so painfully ordinary. But there's little hints given that the world that they're in
is not
as ordinary. And for me, you know, if the entire first chapter of the book had just been explaining to me how boring the Dursleys are and what they ate for breakfast every day and, you know, how they had one lump of sugar in their tea and whatever, I probably would not have been half as interested in this book. But I literally think it's, you know, like within like the first or second sentence, they're already sort of hinting that there's more to the story. And I think really that's what hooks people on Harry Potter, is that right away
everything you think is normal is suddenly not. And that's part of what hooks you, is it's close enough to the truth that you could think maybe there's some magic there.
Well, I mean, for example, it's on the... I can't even remember how far down into the book. It's not far. I think it's on the first page or the second page. They're talking about Mr. Darcy seeing the cat reading the newspaper, or the map. And I don't know if anybody else has a cat, but I have a cat. And I swear, he stares at things. He watches TV. He likes the news. So I could totally see, you know, that happening. You see a cat, they're staring at something, and then they're not.
Yeah, like, and they say cats don't... I mean, it used to be thought that cats didn't really register that stuff, but they totally do. Like, you've seen... They make iPad apps and everything for cats now to chase things. My cat used to chase the mouse, my parents' cat, I should say, on the monitor whenever Mom was using the computer and try to, like, catch the little arrow.
You put one bird on my television, and my cat will try and knock that TV over to get to it. He's 14, ready to kill. Predator, all the way. I mean, right away you're thinking, yeah, I mean, that could be normal. When you're getting a little further into the story and they start talking about seeing all the wizards kind of walking around.
People in robes.
The people in
the
robes.
Meteorological event. And you sort of see Dursley question those things as well as he's going through. Like, he kind of puts it in the back of his mind.
Yeah, why are all these young people wearing these robes, you know?
Are they in fashion now? Yeah. He thinks it's a fad.
And then all of a sudden you realize, wait, some of these people aren't so young. It really kind of sucks you in very quickly into this world. And I think that's one of the great things about Harry Potter, is that it's not... I mean, I've read lots of books. There are lots of books that I really enjoyed, but you're 3 or 4 chapters in before you're kind of like, okay, now I'm interested. And I just feel like this book, within the first paragraph, I'm already like, okay.
It's got you on the hook.
It's got me on the hook. I want to know what's going to happen. I feel like the books get darker as time progresses. For sure, this first book, it really just sort of eases you into the darkness that surrounds the Harry Potter. You don't really see a lot. You get introduced, you know, to the magical world.
And everything's very fantastical still. And this is Harry's impression of it, first impression of it as well.
Exactly. I mean, really, the first book is Harry's first impression of the wizarding world.
Harry knows he's a wanted man. He knows about a dark wizard that tried to kill him, that killed his family. It's the first time he knows this. There's darkness present in the fact that near the end of the book, there actually is attempts on his life, and he does try to help students when other things go wrong. So there are hints of darkness, and those are very like frightening things, but they're still presented in this very hopeful and fantastical way.
And I mean, without getting too far into, you know, the whole storyline, I feel like this first book was such a great introduction. It really just sort of dips your toes into the darkness of the Wizarding World while keeping you very, like, you know, the fantastic. But they go to Diagon Alley and they
go to the bank.
They go to the bank. I mean, who doesn't love a good roller coaster inside a bank? It's such a great first impression. Like, he's so fantastical. I mean, he's meeting some, you know, shady characters, Draco. Yeah, but he's enjoying it. Like, he cannot wait towards the end of this book to go back to school.
Interesting thing that's ever happened to him.
Oh, for sure.
And it's also the only time he's ever felt like he belonged anywhere. When he first meets Hagrid and he's introduced with magic, he gets hopeful and he sort of believes in it. And it's mostly because he wants to believe in it. He needs to, because everything else had not been very good in his life, and he felt so hidden away.
Well, I mean, speaking of Hagrid, first impressions wise, Hagrid, Harry seems to trust Hagrid almost immediately. And, you know, we kind of want to discuss why we think that is.
That's our third Twitter discussion question. What makes Hagrid so trustworthy?
Well, he is... Gosh, he's just so...
You're given the impression
bumbling.
Of a gentle giant.
Yes.
He's so big and so large. And he accidentally crushes things a little bit. But he's so otherwise trying to be careful. And when they talk about how, like, other things go missing or are slightly crushed, he's so careful with Harry as a baby. Now, that's our first impression.
Well, and then really, like, Harry's first impression...
With the cake, it's the same way.
With the cake, he takes this cake and it's all lumpy and falling apart. And he uses, out of all things, an umbrella for magic. And...
he defends Harry.
I mean, anytime, you know, I know you're the Hufflepuff. But anytime anybody brings me cake, I'm like, all right.
It was the first time he'd ever gotten cake for his birthday. It was the first time his birthday was ever really acknowledged.
It's sad.
It was the nicest thing anyone
not even birthday pie
had done for him at that point. Not even birthday pie.
Not even birthday pie.
Harry doesn't know him. He has no reason to really trust him, other than the fact that he's also desperate to trust anyone to get away from the Dursleys, from that situation. He's grown bolder, like as the letters start coming more and more for him, we see him get braver and stronger and push against the Dursleys, whereas before he just accepted it.
Yes, yeah, well, Harry certainly finds, I don't want to say backbone,
but he finds a bit more of a sense of self.
He's an 11-year-old, but I think he finds, exactly, I think he finds the courage to make his life better. And Hagrid, I think, really provides that for him. You know, the letters do and things like that, but Hagrid is such a lovable, he's overly hairy, terrifyingly giant biker dude.
I mean, it would be intimidating to see somebody that large and that big, but his personality is so otherwise charming, and he did give Harry that gift.
A little bit bumbling.
And he says, you know, I have more for you. There's more people like you. There's somewhere he could belong. He's desperate to belong somewhere.
100%. Like, he wants that. And I think the fact that Hagrid was offering him that way out really solidified the I'm going with you. I don't care. I don't want to be here anymore. I'm going to take that chance. Could this have been a horrible thing? Probably. Don't trust strangers. But in this case, it really worked out because Hagrid was really like Harry's best friend.
Other than Hagrid, we start to get to know some other people throughout the book, and we get to know them a lot through Harry's eyes and what he sees as he meets them. So the next main sort of character we get introduced to is Draco.
Okay, so Draco is egotistical. He thinks he's the greatest thing ever, and he initially reaches out to Harry as a friend.
He does. He's another wizarding student. I don't think he notices who Harry is right away, But he does notice that he's there. He's at Madame Pomfrey's, which is the best robe shop. He's getting tailored because he can afford it.
And people are paying attention to him.
Yes.
And I think once he realizes that it's Harry Potter, he realizes Harry Potter's he has some notoriety, even though Harry doesn't know it yet, but the name has notoriety. And Draco is a little sleazeball, and he really enjoys, I think, clinging to somebody who could bring his notoriety.
Yes, and it's hinted at that he sort of suspects maybe he is, but he doesn't really know who he is at the robe shop.
Mm-hmm.
It's not until the train that it confirms for him that that's who he is.
For sure.
But you can tell, like, from the conversation, there's an inkling, and you can tell, and the initial contact is with money, because he comes from a moneyed family, and it presents him as very well coiffed. And Harry's first impression of him is very ill, because he seems very concerned with money and station.
Yes. He's a snob. He wants to only associate with those who are of his social standing.
Yes.
And Harry, like you said, is in there buying, the best. He's buying new everything. He's buying new robes. He's, getting the best robes tailored to him. And Draco is automatically kind of drawn to that concept that this person is at my level, probably below him, because Draco believes everyone is below him. But this could be one of his future new underlings, I think, is his thoughts.
Yes. And when Harry leaves the shop, like, what he doesn't know is that for Harry, this is the first time he's ever had these things. He's never had money. He's had hand-me-down everything, and hand-me-down everything that never fit him, that was never tailored to him.
Well, and
this is a whole new experience.
Dudley is so much bigger than Harry. You've got
he
skinny
was
little
taller,
Harry,
and he was larger in size.
And Dudley had this. He just had this
meatiness to him.
Meatiness to him.
Because it wasn't just that he was a bit larger.
No, he's broad.
He was actually like. And it mentions it because he used to beat up Harry so much. Like, he actually had muscle as well. I feel like in the books a little bit more, Dudley is described more as a large, almost muscular, just like a bigger... Like Vernon. They're described as very tall, very muscle men.
And I feel like in the movies he's just sort of more rotund and overweight. Which I feel is kind of a disservice to Dudley and Vernon a little bit.
It does mention that Vernon has put on weight from eating Petunia's cooking and not being as active as he used to be, but it does mention he used to be active in certain things.
Yeah.
And he wants Dudley to follow in those footsteps.
I always pictured Dudley, from reading the books, as more of like a football quarterback.
Yes.
Like,
exactly.
Or not a quarterback, or I don't know.
Like one
defense
of those,
linesmen. I don't have
really big
I don't know anything about football, but one of the big guys, not the runners, because they're usually the skinny, fast ones. But for sure, I always pictured him as sort of more like a football player, kind of just like a big dude, like Moose in the Archie comics.
Yes.
And then when I watched the movies, it was sort of disappointing to me to see him portrayed as just not in that sense of
physical presence.
Exactly. First impressions wise, in the book I feel like you get something totally different from Dudley.
You do.
Than in the movie.
Just like pulling it back to that sense of entitlement, because Dudley has that as much as Draco does, which I think is what led us that way. But like, we see even more of that from Draco on the train.
For sure.
When we meet Ron.
Well, Ron is the youngest, or not the youngest. His sister Ginny is younger than he is, but he is the second youngest child of many children. He has 5 older brothers. He is the youngest boy of 6. I have an older brother. not that I got a lot of hand-me-downs because he was a boy and I was a girl, but I definitely got hand-me-downs. So I can only imagine what that's like when you have 6 or 5 older siblings and you are getting hand-me-downs of hand-me-downs. And I definitely got hand-me-downs from cousins and things like that were probably in a lot better shape than
And it's not that his
Ron.
father doesn't have a good job. His father has a very good job. He works within the Ministry of Magic.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that with so many children, you have to make the best of what you have.
Mm-hmm. For sure. And I think Ron is from a totally different social level than, of course,
Yes.
Draco.
It's more of a class thing.
It's more of a class thing. And I mean, it's certainly well known, right at the beginning of the books that what Draco thinks of the Weasleys. Whether or not it's, he always mentions the gingers, that stalk of red hair, you must be a Weasley.
And
like
that
it's a
plays
bad
into
thing.
a little bit of British history as well, because traditionally the Irish were seen as lower class and working men, and it was very much a class war
It's true.
signifier.
To be fair, we love the gingers.
It's true.
Yeah, I love the gingers. I feel like for Draco, who is this WASP breeding program, blonde hair, blue eyes, icy white skin tone, for sure. I mean, I think that it plays right into his demeanor, that he just has to pick somebody to demean, to really
He
drag
has
through the mud.
to make sure his class is known at the school.
For
that
sure.
he comes from a better family.
And when
That his family is so prominent.
And when he sees Ron, he knows right away that this is somebody that I can let everyone know I am better than him. We're still going back to Draco, but for Ron, poor Ron, I feel bad for him in so many ways. He gets teased.
And he gets teased about his hand-me-down, everything. His wand, his pet, all of it is secondhand.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what makes Harry want to be friends with him right away without knowing much about him, because Harry is used to the hand-me-down everything.
Mm-hmm.
And he's used to not having much.
Exactly. So I think that they are pulled together with their mutual respect for each other.
Yes.
And, that this is a new beginning, that they're going to be able to finally become something than, just little Ron at home and Harry getting away from the Dursleys. It really gives them the chance to say, yes, we're on our way to do something else. They're really excited about, I think, this new beginning and being able to start.
And that's another good point, because when Harry gets on the train too, he's still wearing those old hand-me-down clothes.
Mm-hmm.
He hasn't changed into his better, really well-fitting Hogwarts robes yet.
Mm-hmm. So automatically Ron knows that this is somebody who he doesn't, I don't think, know that this is Harry Potter yet.
But they do talk about it a bit on the train. He
Yes.
asks to see the scar.
Mm-hmm.
But he doesn't know that Harry has any money, and he's not interested in the notoriety.
Exactly. I think what brings them together is the fact that he sees somebody who he can relate to, that he can really
Who looks
be
like he does.
who looks like he does, scrawny little 11-year-old that he is. And I don't know why you would have anything tailored for an 11-year-old. Like,
You're going to outgrow that real fast.
yeah, like, are these magic robes that grow with your children? Like, they're going to last a year?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think they do. So I feel like everybody should be getting on the train with clothes that's too big. So shortly after they get on the train, the cart comes around for food.
Yes.
And Ron knows what all the good goodies are, those chocolate frogs.
And Harry's
with the
never
trading
seen
cards.
them.
And poor Ron, the youngest of 6 boys, has a younger sister coming up behind him. He doesn't really have any spending money. His mom had packed him lunch. And this is really when Harry was sort of reaches into his pocket and he's like, okay, well, what do you want? Because I've got all this gold and like most 11-year-olds has no idea what to do with it, so let's buy all the candy.
Yeah, he doesn't know what to do, and there's a cart full of food, And he doesn't know what's good, and he wants to be able to share this newfound wealth that he suddenly has with someone who very much didn't have it.
I know, and for me, it's kind of like, you know, when you got that popsicle and it cracks in half and you give one piece to somebody else. I feel like that's what Harry's doing. He's like, you know what,
He knows he has a vault, he's seen it with a ton of gold. He feels like, I'm just going to buy this cart and share it with them.
Yeah, that's right. Why not? Let's all get sick on chocolate frogs. It'll be great. Get all those trading cards.
Eat those Birdie Bought every flavor beans.
Delicious. But I think that's such an innocent act on Harry's part as well. Like, I feel like that wasn't something Ron was expecting. You know, that wasn't, you know, oh, you know, you're Harry Potter. You can afford all this.
The most he wants to know about it is, like...
the scar.
Can I see the scar?
Yeah.
Because he thinks that's cool. He's 11. It's cool to see a scar.
I think that doesn't stop with age. I think at like 33, you're like, yeah, can I see your scar? Cool. Yeah. It's shaped like a lightning bolt.
We went to Belle Island a little while ago, and while we were waiting for you guys to catch up at the ferry, because I had hurt my toe, myself and 2 other people were sitting down. We were talking about different scars we've gotten.
Of course. Shortly after this, Hermione comes.
Yes.
And Hermione's an outsider, and Hermione has done, I think, very much what I would have done, which would have been to prepare way too much. Way too much.
It's true.
She really, like, overexerted herself trying to learn as much as possible so that she would fit in. I mean, she was Muggle-born, and she really, I feel, wanted to catch up to all those people that are...
grew up with it and already probably knew these things.
She was a huge smarty pants. Like a huge know-it-all.
And I don't know that she was necessarily trying to be. She just wanted to prove that she knew it because she wanted to prove she could fit in.
Exactly. She wants to have a proud witch and wizarding heritage, and she doesn't want to go in there being like a country bumpkin who doesn't know anything about magic. So she really prepared so that...
And she wouldn't know that. Harry wouldn't know about that. She didn't know yet he grew up with the Muggles.
Probably is not aware of how much knowledge most 11-year-olds really have. I mean, if you're 11 years old and the toast just magically comes out of the toaster and puts on your plate every day, you don't think about it. That's how toast is made, right? I just, you know, it's like cooking a turkey. It happens sometimes and it's just there on your plate. That's how it happens when you're a kid. You don't really appreciate the fact that your mom got up at
5 o'clock in the morning, started a turkey so it will be ready for lunchtime.
Exactly. But I feel like that's how it works for, you know, young witches and wizards. They may not know how to make toast that comes out of the toaster and, you know, lands on your plate, floats over. But they don't think about it. As where for Hermione, this is really something that is like, this has never happened in my life. I have to physically go over and put the little piece of bread down, put the thing down, you know, take my toast and put the jam
and
on.
I suddenly have to get used to all these new things, and I have to make sure I know them, and I have to belong.
Exactly. Get that pronunciation down.
But what makes her soft, even from the beginning on the train, is she's trying to help Neville find his missing pet. So you can tell she's compassionate, and she's not... that's what really gives you the impression that she's not trying to be a smarty pants. She just sort of is. She's not self-aware yet.
And as somebody with crazy, curly, fuzzy hair, I really related to Hermione really well. I try to know too much and then probably make a fool of myself because I'm saying things I shouldn't say. I really associated with Hermione really well. I felt like Hermione was a little misunderstood, but clearly Ron had a little like, oh God, like, what
Does she have to know everything?
Does she have to know everything? But I mean, clearly they warm up a little bit. So, I mean, they go to save her when, you know, they hear about the troll.
Yeah, big difference between the book and the movie, though. They didn't think to tell a teacher that Hermione would be in the bathrooms to go get her, first of all. which is fine enough. They sort of did that Gryffindor signature braveness thing, but impulsively because they're children and were like, we need to go tell Hermione and get her so that the troll doesn't find her. Not knowing their way around the school, because it does change a lot as well. They don't realize exactly where the women's bathroom are, but they think there'll be a sign. They just know it's on the same floor with the troll. They accidentally trapped the troll in there with her in the first place, whereas the troll might have just passed her by.
Oops.
Whoopsie daisies.
Oops. Harry and Ron try and kill Hermione. Book 1 of Harry Potter.
But they very quickly realize what they've done as they hear Hermione scream, because there's a troll in the girls' bathroom. And they do jump in and try to stop the troll. And whether or not Hermione ever learns that they did that in the first place, because I don't think she does, she's grateful that they at least tried to rectify their own mistake and that they tried to save her.
I don't know. I feel like that's something that would come out much later. Like when they're in, I don't know, is there like a Hogwarts University? Like magical university over a few too many butterbeers?
By the way.
Remember that time you almost died? A little bit of slurring. That may have been us. Yay!